The first friend group you have is the one you did not choose. They were just there. Same street, same school, same lunch table, by accident one Tuesday that turned into every Tuesday for 3 years. You did not have similar taste or similar ambitions or similar ideas about what you wanted your life to look like. You had proximity. And proximity at that age is enough to build something real. Money was not a thing between you because money was not a thing at all. Nobody had any. You split things down the middle, or you covered each other, or you just did not go places that cost money. The arithmetic was simple because the amounts were small. Nobody kept score because there was nothing worth scoring. That changes. It always changes. The question is just how and when and which direction it goes. When it does, you are in your mid-20s, and you are all still roughly the same. Same jobs or similar ones. Same apartments or comparable ones. Same Friday nights in the same rotation of places that are cheap enough that nobody has to think about it. You cover a round, and someone covers the next one, and nobody tracks it, because it evens out over time. And everyone understands that it evens out over time. This is the last period when money is genuinely not a factor between you. Not because you are all doing well, because you are all doing similarly. The sameness is the thing that holds it together. Then someone starts doing better. Not dramatically at first, a promotion. A side thing that turned into a real thing. The difference is small enough that nobody mentions it, small enough that you do not notice it until it is no longer small. You are the one doing better. And the first thing you notice is that you stop doing the mental math at the end of the night. It starts with small things. You suggest a restaurant that is a little nicer than where you usually go. Not expensive, just nicer. There is a hesitation, brief. Almost invisible. One friend checks the menu on his phone before agreeing. Another says sure, with a particular flatness that means he is thinking about it. You do not say anything about it. Nobody says anything about it. You go. You eat. The conversation is the same as always. But you notice the hesitation, and you will keep noticing versions of it for years. You start making the adjustments without announcing them. You suggest cheaper places when you are paying. You pick up the extra drink without making it a thing. You handle the tip in a way that rounds up quietly. You are trying to make it easy without anyone having to say it is hard. What you do not realize yet is that making it easy without saying why you are making it easy is its own kind of distance. You are managing them. And being managed by a friend feels different than being treated by one even when the outcome is the same. One friend handles it with humor. He makes jokes about your money before you have much money to make jokes about. When you get the new job, he says you are too expensive for them now. When you move to a better apartment, he calls it the penthouse. When you buy a decent coat, he asks if you need a butler. The jokes are gentle. He is not mean. He is doing what people do when they feel the ground shifting and do not know how to talk about the shift directly. He is naming the thing while pretending not to name it. The humor is the safe container for something that does not have another container yet. You laugh. You are supposed to laugh. And you do laugh because the jokes are sometimes funny and because laughing is easier than having the conversation underneath the jokes. But over time you notice that the jokes do not stop. They just become the way he relates to the part of you that is changing. Every time you mention something about your life, the joke is ready. And after a while, the joke starts to feel like a door he closes every time you try to walk through it. You stop mentioning things, not everything, just the things that will get a joke instead of a response. One friend becomes your biggest supporter, and you do not fully trust it. She celebrates everything, every raise. She shares your work on her social media. She tells people about you. She says she always knew you would do something like this. You appreciate it. You genuinely appreciate it. But somewhere in the appreciation is a small, unanswered question. Is she celebrating you? Or is she celebrating the version of you that makes her feel like she has successful people in her life? Is the enthusiasm about what you built, or about what your building does, for her story about herself? You hate that you think about this. It says something about the way success changes you, that you start examining the motives of people who are being kind to you. But you cannot unknow what you know about how people work, and what you know is that enthusiasm and loyalty are not the same thing, and sometimes they look identical until they are not. She is still your friend, a real one. But the dynamic shifted somewhere, and you are not entirely sure it shifted in the direction of more honesty. One friend just goes quiet, not dramatically, not suddenly. He just becomes harder to reach. The texts take longer to come back. The plans are made less often and canceled more. When you do see him, it is warm. It is genuinely warm. He is happy to see you, and you are happy to see him, and for 2 hours it is almost exactly the same as it always was. Then you drive home and 2 weeks pass, and you realize you have not spoken. You reach out. He responds. You make plans. He cancels, with a reason that is true and also convenient. You reach out again. The cycle repeats. He does not resent you. You believe that. You have known him long enough to read him, well enough to believe that the feeling is not resentment. It is something quieter and harder to name. It is the discomfort of being close to someone whose life has diverged from yours in a visible way. Every time you are together, the gap is in the room. And the gap is not his fault and not yours. And it is nobody's fault, and it is still uncomfortable. And sometimes the most honest response to discomfort is distance. You miss him, not dramatically, in the background. The way you miss certain versions of your life that existed before things changed. Not with grief exactly, just with an awareness that something real was there and is now somewhere harder to reach. New friendships form. They form the way adult friendships always form, which is slowly and contextually, and usually around something you are both doing. These friends are different in ways you notice but do not discuss. The conversations are different, denser. The references are different. The problems are different. The assumptions about how the world works are different. When you mention something in your life, there is no translation required. The context is shared. The shorthand works immediately. It is easier in certain ways. More friction-free. The social math is simpler because you are all operating with similar resources and similar assumptions. You are not managing anyone. Nobody is managing you. The adjustments you used to make quietly and automatically are no longer necessary. What you do not expect is to feel the loss of the adjustments, not because the adjustments were good, but because making them meant you were connected to people whose lives required a different kind of attention. The new friendships are easier, and something in the ease feels thinner than what it replaced. You do not say this out loud. It sounds ungrateful when you try to say it out loud, but you think it in the quiet moments, and you carry it without having a clean place to put it. The friendships from before do not all end. Some of them survive the change in ways that surprise you. One friend becomes more himself around you as the years go on. not less. He stops performing the version of himself that was always slightly self-conscious around what he perceived as your judgment and starts just being in the room. The money stopped being a thing between you somewhere around year 8, and you are not sure exactly when it stopped. But one day you noticed it was just gone, and the friendship underneath it was still there, and it was better than what you had at the lunch table all those years ago, because it was chosen now and not just proximate. One friend calls you on a Saturday morning years later with a question. She is starting something. She is scared. She does not want money. She wants to know how you thought about it when you were at the beginning. How you managed the fear. Whether you believed in it before you had evidence to believe in it. You talk for 2 hours. It is one of the best conversations you have had in a long time, because it is completely honest on both sides. You are not managing her. She is not performing for you. You are just two people sitting in the history of a long friendship talking about something real. You did not know that conversation was coming. You could not have predicted which friend it would be. You're glad you stayed close enough to receive it. Here is what you learn eventually. Wealth does not end friendships. It filters them. It reveals which ones were built on sameness and which ones were built on something sturdier. The ones built on sameness were not false. Sameness is a real foundation. It just is not a permanent one, because people do not stay the same. Someone always changes first. The change is always uncomfortable. What you are left with after the discomfort is the actual thing. Some friendships survive the filter and become something more honest than they were before. Some do not survive and leave a quieter space where they used to be. Both of those outcomes are real. Neither of them is entirely loss or entirely gain. What you cannot do is stop changing to protect the sameness. That is the version of the story where you spend years smaller than you are to avoid the discomfort of the filter. And the friendships you preserve that way are preserved at a cost that eventually becomes its own kind of loneliness. There is a dinner every few months now. Not everyone comes every time. The logistics of adult life mean the group is always slightly incomplete. But the core of it is there. Some of them you have known for 20 years. Some of them you met in the last 5. They do not all know each other equally well, and the conversations move the way. Conversations move when the people in them are at different points in different journeys. At some point in the evening, someone says something honest. Not planned. Just the thing that is actually true said out loud without the usual coding around it. And someone else responds honestly. And for about 20 minutes, the conversation is the kind that reminds you why you keep doing this. Why you keep showing up for the dinners even when the logistics are complicated and the week was long. The money is somewhere in the room. It is always somewhere in the room now. But it is not at the table. It is not between you. That took years. It was worth it. The friends who are still there are there because they chose to be, not because you were convenient or proximate, or because the logistics kept you together. Because something in the history was worth continuing, and they decided that, and you decided that, and you kept deciding it until the decision became just the shape of your life. That is the only kind of friendship that survives the long changes. The chosen one. Everything else was practice,